Here on the Rich Eisen Show in person is none other than the great Gus Johnson. Good to see you, sir.
What up?
How?
Man, it feels good to be out here.
It feels good to have you here.
With you.
We are, and this is not the royal way, this is literally all of us. We are huge fans of yours.
Oh, thank you so much.
I told you that first time I met you.
I try hard. You know, I don't want to screw it up. I try my best.
It's just, your best is just you rolling in and just doing your thing and calling the action. And the way you call a game is just infectious for all of us sitting at home. We feel your excitement of it.
Thank you. You know, this isn't a real job. You know that, right?
I know that.
None of this is a real job.
It's a toy department.
It's
the toy department.
You know, when I came out of high school, I thought my next spot was going to be at the plant. So, coming up in Detroit.
Yes.
So, to have a job like this, man, you should be excited every day. I'm excited every day.
How did you get started?
Howard University.
Okay.
The broadcasting department, the School of Journalism. Great professors. I was a political science major, and then some way segued into broadcasting, into broadcast journalism, and I fell in love with it the first day. You know how it is. So, it beats working a real job for a living, and I'm so blessed, and words can't express the amount of gratitude I have toward the people that have helped me in my life and in my career, man. And just sitting here with you, here out in Los Angeles, California, man, is a big deal.
It's fun, no doubt about it. So, what was the first game you called? What was your first gig?
Howard University women's basketball. When I was a junior in college.
Let me guess, the game went to overtime and it was a buzzer beater.
No, I don't even remember. I was just, Rich, back then, I was just happy that I could put the remote into the plug and figure out how to get on air in the dorms. It only went to the dorms. And I'll never forget the first time I thought I might have a chance in broadcasting. I called a women's game, and then...
This is at Howard University.
This is at Howard.
Gus Johnson, by the way, here in the Rich Eisen Show studio, our terrestrial radio audience just rejoined us.
And then I went back to the dorm, and I had all my gear.
Yeah.
I put my suit on and my tie on, and I went back to the dorm after the game was over, and one of the Bison football players who lived in the dorm, he came up to me, and he said, "Hey, man, I listened to you call the game tonight." And I said, "Oh, yeah?" He said, "Yeah, man. Stick with that. I think you might have something here." That's all I needed.
And off you went.
Wow. And off I went.
So what was your biggest break, Gus? Who gave you your biggest break?
My biggest break, I think, was a band by the name of Don Marion in Waco, Texas, when I got my first job at KXXV-TV, Channel 25.
Were you doing the local sports?
Local sports.
People would turn it on. There's Gus Johnson saying
I
what's
mean,
going on.
I was a weekend anchor, weekday reporter.
Yeah.
I got that job right out of college on the air. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. And he gave me a job based on potential.
Okay.
And also from an affirmative action standpoint as well. Thank goodness. And I got that job in Waco, and I had a chance to work with a man by the name of Ray Peters that taught me everything, who was my new sports director.
Yeah.
And that was the greatest experience. I covered T-ball all the way up to Baylor. And I miss those days. Chicken fried steak, Del Taco, Luby's, Diddy plates.
But you travel the country now on campuses. You must see all those spots every now and then, some small schools, some other schools.
Yeah, well, I still go to Waco.
Yeah, sure.
Kansas State.
Yeah.
I love Manhattan, Kansas.
I bet you do.
It's a long ride, but once you get there, it's perfect. It's heaven. So some of those small schools, Stillwater, Oklahoma. Norman is still relatively small.
So you're there in Waco, and then who gave you a call? When did CBS come knocking on
Oh,
your
my
door?
gosh, that took a long time. I went from Waco to Huntsville to Greensboro to Washington, D.C., to New York with Madison Square Garden Network.
Oh, yeah.
That's when everything got real.
When you started calling Knicks games, right? Doing stuff
Eventually,
like that?
yeah.
Eventually?
Yeah. I did the Knicks for 13 years. MSG Network, the Big East Network, ESPN 7, 8, 9, and 10. All the ESPN channels I think I worked for. I two Grey Cups for ESPN, 94, 95.
Did those go into overtime, too?
One of them did, I think, when Louis Pasaglia hit the final field.
See, you do
for the BC Lions.
So when you do realize that you have a knack, or the television and sports gods seem to have bestowed upon you the craziest endings and the tightest games, that if you ever are calling a game and somebody's up by 21, you would
bet.
You
I heard that during the NCAA tournament years ago. There was a thing, because I don't know anything about betting, but I heard that people were betting on my games. I heard this is true. I was like, wow. They would bet the underdog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, whoever was up would blow it, or whoever was down would come back if Gus Johnson was on the call.
Yo, Rich, man, I had a run for football and for basketball when I was at CBS for the NCAA tournament and for the NFL. I had a run that I would just pinch myself when it was over, when the games were over. I mean, game after game after game.
Do you remember which ones off the top of your head?
Football, NFL, Chris Johnson versus Maurice Jones-Drew, Jacksonville, Tennessee. We had Hail Mary. It was, I want to see it was Jacksonville and the Texans. Hail Mary. David Garrard threw a Hail Mary.
Yeah, I remember.
We had, oh my gosh, the greatest game, one of the greatest games. The Immaculate Deflection.
Yeah.
Denver and Cincinnati.
Is that Brandon Stokely?
Brandon Stokely. That was
Brandon Stokely.
Wasn't that
You
week
just
one?
screamed.
That was week one, right?
Was that? I don't remember.
I think it was the beginning of the year.
Right. Incredible.
Incredible. And then you had, one of the best ones, Isaiah Thomas for Washington
Oh
in the
my
Pac-12 final.
Cold-blooded.
Cold-blooded. One of the best ever.
Just cold-blooded.
Yeah.
In those kind of moments, that's all you just resort back to the hood. Man, that was cold-blooded. So just so many. I mean, Xavier, Ohio State in Lexington to go to the Final Four. I had Matt Sylvester for Ohio State hitting the wing jump shot to beat Illinois. Illinois, I think, was 22-0 that year with James Augustine and Dee Brown. Darren, that played for Utah. Darren
Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's now the fighter, right? The boxer.
Is he boxing now?
Right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Was he the one who went against Frank Gore, right? Did the two of them fight?
He knocked out Frank Gore.
He knocked Frank Gore out?
Yes.
Gus, didn't you do the UCLA Adam Morrison game?
UCLA Adam Morrison.
Yep.
Oh, the NCAA tournament. Forget about it. UCLA Adam Morrison. We had Gonzaga when they beat Florida. The slipper still fits. We had who am I talking about?
The greatest. No,
It's all of us, really.
it's all. of
Yeah,
us.
it's
Honestly,
us.
we were all, because
Yeah, we all
again,
win.
just hearing you make these calls. Honestly, we all feel like we were sitting there next to you.
Yeah. You know, it's
That's
very
a fact,
interesting.
man.
That's very interesting that you say that to me, because I can't, they say, which is true, you never see yourself. You only see a reflection. You've never seen your face. You've only seen a reflection of your face as a human being. You've never seen this part of your back.
Right.
So I can't see myself. I would love to see myself during those moments, because I sometimes don't really understand the reaction. To me, it's just, I'm just watching the game. I'm a fan. I'm a journalist, and I take that seriously.
Sure.
But more than anything, I'm just a fan of sports. Thank God for sports. I want to write a play. There was this play that I read years ago by Douglas Turner Ward, and it was a satire about what would happen. This is in the 50s. What would happen back then in the 50s? Now take that in consideration. What would happen if all the black people disappeared back then? Meaning, you didn't have anybody to cut your lawn. White people didn't have anybody to do their, housework and all that stuff. What would happen if one day sports disappeared? It almost felt like that during the pandemic.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
There's no question,
the closest
Gus.
time we had.
You get a little, just think about that.
Yeah. And then sports came
That
back.
play, by the way, is called The Day of Absence. You should read it. It's hilarious.
Okay. I will
By
definitely
Douglas
do that.
Turner Ward.
And then the fact that we were wondering if fans would come back, we would ever feel that way again, and obviously, thank goodness we do.
Right.
And just feeling so then while we're on that subject, the loudest crowd you've ever called a game.
I've had so many.
I know that.
There's nothing like a basketball game when Kentucky is good at Rupp. Anywhere in the SEC.
Anywhere in the SEC.
Anywhere in the SEC. Anywhere in the SEC. The SEC is a whole different level. I'll tell you one place that actually is my favorite place to call a football game.
That is?
The University of Washington. That place is loud, and it's so aesthetically beautiful. You're right there on the water, and Washington has those cool uniforms with purple, black, and yellow.
People taking boats to the game.
And it's really, really, really loud.
I don't know what it is with the stadiums in Seattle. It's just
it's incredible, right?
They just they got loud fans, they got crazy fans.
Yeah.
And then we want to talk about iconic. I got Gus Johnson here on the Rich Eisen Show. You just called a game at the Rose Bowl. I mean, and what a game.
Unbelievable game. Did you watch any of that?
I was there for,
were you?
Yeah, Susan and I brought the kids.
Wow.
We went there. And I was.
How many kids you got?
And went 3.
And how old are they?
14, 11, and 9.
Does the 14-year-old talk to you still?
My 14. I hear choice words.
Right.
I hear choice words.
You get a pound now. No more hugs and kisses, right?
I got some choice words. There's no question about it. But it's funny when UCLA went up 14-0. I'm like, this is going to be a game.
It was over
because Gus is calling it.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't worry about it. Just wait. Plus, also Caleb Williams is.
I think that kid is a Heisman Trophy winner. With everything that's happened, I know C.J. Stroud is great.
You've called some Corum games too, and I know
Blake Corum is great.
Yeah.
But this Caleb Williams, he's put up, I want to say out of the last 6 games he's played, he's put up 4 bills 5 times, 5 bills this past weekend.
Right.
I was getting texts from my boys during the game, and they were like, this is Patrick Mahomes. This could be Patrick Mahomes. He's smart. He's just so smart. He's so clever. And Patrick Mahomes comes from that same Lincoln Riley system, that air raid Mike Leach, and when he played at Texas Tech. And this kid, Lincoln Riley is he's innovative. Think about the quarterbacks he's had. Baker, Kyler, Jalen. Now this kid, it's just so wonderful that USC was able to get him. I know Oklahoma, they were disappointed, but to have him out here with this brand of football, getting ready to go into the Big Ten, it's just, I think he's just a young special.
So if you had a Heisman,
I do have one.
Oh, you do have one.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna vote for Caleb Williams right now?
As of today.
But
we'll see what happens. They got to play Notre Dame this weekend.
That's right.
It puts up another big game in Notre Dame. I want to see USC's offense against Georgia.
Well, you might get that chance.
Yeah, I want to see a West Coast team. Think about it. If we get a USC, we get a SEC team, we get a Big Ten team.
And then TCU, so you get a Big 12.
And you get a Big 12 team. I think that might be perfect.
Gus Johnson here on the Rich Eisen Show. Walk me through what it's going to be like for you Saturday. You've called Michigan-Ohio State games before, but you have not called them where both are undefeated. This is your first in that foray, because I'd imagine you were not in the booth in 2006 for that one. So what's it going to be like for you?
Okay, I'll travel tomorrow, which is Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And my lady lives in Columbus, so I'll have Thanksgiving dinner at about midnight.
Okay.
Which is important. So then Friday we get up.
Oh, is it midnight? You having midnight?
Yeah, because I'm not leaving here until
got it.
And by the time I get there, get my bags out of the airport.
Okay. So a midnight Thanksgiving meal. Very good.
So I'll have that. Friday we get up. I'll do a couple of radio interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I got to talk to Cleveland. My man Riz. You know Riz? Cleveland. Yeah.
Okay.
But at his ESPN station. But then we go see Ryan Day and the Buckeyes at noon over at their facility, and they're really nice because they give us lunch and we get a chance to sit down
And you don't wear blue, right? You know that clearly.
I don't ever wear blue.
Okay, very good. Okay, all right.
And
Okay.
we sit down with Ryan. We talked to Jim yesterday, Jim Harbaugh.
How'd he sound?
He's a quirky dude. I mean, I really like him. He's a quirky dude. He's a smart guy. He can be really funny.
Yeah.
Once he takes you into his fold, he's a really good guy. The two of us have a really great relationship. I like him a lot, even though he can be a goofball. But I remember asking him not too long ago, I said, Coach, how many concussions did you have as a player? He says, I don't remember. So he's had a lot of concussions.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Harbaugh.
Right.
So is Corum going to play, do you think?
I don't think so.
Oh, my God.
That's what I read. I mean, and I didn't get this from Harbaugh. I read it.
All right.
One of the players
kind
of dropped that.
As it currently sounds right now.
That's what it said.
Okay, but you didn't get that sense from Harbaugh?
He wouldn't give us anything. He wouldn't give us anything on injuries.
Okay.
He was like, whoever's going to play is going to play, and whoever doesn't play, the guy behind him has to step up. I mean, but Ohio State's hurt too,
Sure. Okay. So you spoke to Jim, and so you're going to see Ryan Day in Columbus.
On Friday.
Okay. And then what game day? What's that like? Like, you got a suit picked out already?
Got a suit picked out.
Okay. Good.
No neutral colors.
Got it.
Because you get.
Oh, yeah.
I get killed for that. And not even thinking about it. I'm just pulling out something that's clean. That's why I was late today because that's why I was late today, Rich, because man, I was in Cambridge, then I went to where was it? Then I flew out here to LA, did the game.
Yes.
Stayed at the hotel out there in Pasadena, and I live here in Los Angeles. So I needed to wash my clothes. So I'm late. I'm sitting there washing clothes.
Well, you look great.
Well, thank you. I'm, dressed to
nailed it.
impress when I'm with a superstar.
Oh, stop.
Going coast to coast.
So Saturday you got the game picked out, and then so when it's time for the broadcast, I mean, this game's going to do a huge number. It does every year, and just the sense of it. I mean, what's that like?
I got
Gus
Joel
Johnson?
Klatt.
He's awesome.
So I don't have to. I'm like the guy that sits in the back of the class that's waiting to go to football practice, and you sit next to Joel Klatt, and you make him have one cheek on and one cheek off on his seat, so he'll drop that right shoulder so you can see everything's on his paper. That was me. I was that kid. Just help me stay eligible.
I feel that way every draft when I was doing it with Mayock, and now I'm doing it with Daniel.
I work with Mike Mayock for years.
Sure. And Daniel Jeremiah and Joel Klatt does our Friday night broadcast as well. When those guys, like, if you ever saw the movie The Sting, you ever saw that where they're ready
Robert
to,
Redford,
and Paul Newman, and then where the guy who Paul Newman is hired to look after Robert Redford's character walks in on the day of The Sting, and he sees him like, oh, if I'm seeing you, there's a problem. And then Robert Redford finally walks in, and he just
everybody's
exhales.
okay.
That's the way I felt whenever somebody like Klatt or Jeremiah show up.
That's
or
right.
Mayock.
Yeah. So I got Joel. And what I try to do is when I first started broadcasting, we remember Don Maggott and Associates.
Of course, I sent a tape to them as a headhunter.
Me too.
Years ago.
So they would come in and coach us, which I think is just wonderful. And I think that's something that's lost in broadcasting right now, actually having somebody that can teach you, because we teach ourselves pretty much once we become pros. And they used to always say low and slow. Start low and start slow so you can build an arc. And then once I studied, when I studied with Marty Glickman when I was a young broadcaster, the legendary Marty Glickman.
Very much so. I mean, New York City fans definitely know who he is. For sure.
So Marty used to be the
Marv's
voice.
guy. Wasn't that Marv's guy who emulated after?
Exactly.
When
he was an intern.
Yes, right.
At NYU. So Marty used to always say, son, the game is in front of you, not on all that paperwork you got on your desk. So I literally just try to watch the game. I just want to watch the game and see what's happening in the game. And that will determine, what kind of notes I use or what kind of stories I tell. But I want to make sure that as a point guard, I keep Joel's hands full early. I make sure that, I always say to him, all right, big fella, I want 35 points, 25 rebounds coming from you. A couple block shots as well in this game. And so I'm going to keep your hands full, so don't drop the ball. And I just want to feed him, get comfortable, and then when it gets good, be ready to go. And he understands, okay, this is Gus's time. Let me, slow my roll a little bit and let him get in where he has to get in.
Which is the action, and then
which is the action, which is the excitement, which is the emotion, which is the ebbs and flows of it, which is the storytelling of it. I look for ways to bring people in. Like, for example, Dorian Thompson-Robinson went down in that game. And, after the game, I just think about it all night. I think about it all night on Saturday.
The broadcast.
Yeah, all day on Sunday. And I finally start really thinking about the next game on Monday when I start watching tape. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson goes down. This game is scintillating. You got two incredible quarterbacks. You got two black quarterbacks playing for two incredible franchises, USC, UCLA, at the legendary Rose Bowl. The game is close. The star quarterback for UCLA goes down, and I sometimes, attaboy myself, because in that moment I said, come on, man, you got to get up. Dorian. And sometimes I even go first person. Mm-hmm. Like, we're talking to him. Dorian, get up. Get up, man. We need you. You can't not finish this game. So I like to work on those nuances of my broadcasting game now. Not so much worried about the mechanics, because after 30 years, that's part of it. I know it now. I could call the national championship game if you gave me two rosters in 30 minutes, if I had to. That's kind of how, you got to have your confidence.
I know. For sure. No.
You can't be a chump when you get up there and that red light comes on. Because that red light can chump you. You know how it is, Rich.
I do. Oh, yeah. Can't be a chump when that red light goes on.
Don't let
Might
the
be one of my new
sphincter
favorite.
muscle tighten up on you.
Really?
Gus Johnson, kind enough to stick around for the rest of the hour right here on the Rich Eisen Show in studio. And, we're watching Jenny Taft, who's normally on the sidelines with you. There she is anchoring the coverage right now of the World Cup on Fox. Have you ever called soccer?
Oh, yeah, I did.
For what, MLS or something?
I called soccer for Fox. I did two Champions League finals.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You did one of them, Mike? Is that what you're saying?
I did one of those with you, Gus.
Did you?
At Fox. I think I mixed one of those.
When did you first join Fox? When did you first
12
join
years
Fox?
ago.
You joined 12 years ago, and you were
Gus
what?
has been 96.
96 is when he joined Fox.
Wow, he's been there forever.
96.
Right. I was
But
at
I left
CBS
for 10
forever.
years to go to NFL.
I know, the NFL.
But
and-
still.
Yeah.
20, yeah.
So you called soccer? Is there anything
think
that
I
you
did.
haven't called that you'd want to call?
Golf. Oh. I'd like to call golf.
Okay.
I could imagine, because, golf is really about putting,
Yeah.
hitting big putts, like hitting big shots in games.
Yeah.
I think I could add something to that.
Okay. What's your golf game
agree.
like? Do you have one?
Well, I had gotten down to as low as a 12, but then I stopped. I hurt my back.
That's a problem when you're playing
So
golf.
then now I'm back up in the
Okay. So you
20s.
See, golf is the one thing you'd want to call.
That'd be fun.
Have you ever called tennis?
No.
I've done that.
I bet you'd be really good at it.
It was great.
Like Chris Fowler is great at calling tennis.
Fowler is, as you
He's
know,
great at calling football, but tennis, I really love listening to him call tennis.
him on the U.S. Open and all the championship matches now, the Grand Slam on ESPN.
Yeah.
He's great. He's one of my favorites. He was at my wedding.
Oh, was he?
I've known him forever. He's good people.
Yeah, tell him I said what's up.
I will do that. Absolutely. Gus Johnson here on the Rich Eisen Show here on the Roku channel. And we are now back here on the Rich Eisen Show on our terrestrial radio outlets. Gus Johnson is sitting here right now, getting set to call the big game between Michigan and the Ohio State on Saturday. My heart's going to be in my throat.
I know.
I those commercial breaks feel like
I know you
they're
can't.
3 hours
Oh
long.
my God.
I just can't handle it.
My lady is from Columbus.
Yeah.
She was born at Columbus at Ohio State Hospital. Her brother went to Ohio State Medical School. Her father went to Ohio State Medical School. a couple of years ago when Clemson beat Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were in D.C. at the Four Seasons, and because she's such a Rabbit fan, I left the room because I didn't want any parts of it. I go downstairs, the game ends, Ohio State loses. It's New Year's Eve.
Yes.
So I'm ready to party, and I come back, the whole room is pitch black. She's in bed.
Game over.
It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, no.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Happy New Year.
My plans were foiled by Dabo Sweetie.
Oh, yeah. I know the feeling.
You know?
I know. Well, last year it was New Year's Eve, Michigan and Georgia. And that did not go well at all. And my daughter, who was 8 at the time, came up and gave me these New Year's Eve beads because she saw how upset I was. And of course, it's, you know, that makes you forget about it for about 90 seconds. And then
Think
you're back
about
in a
me.
world of hurt.
I grew up a Michigan fan.
Because you're
Born
from
and raised
in Detroit.
In Detroit.
Yes.
My father, some of the greatest memories I had as a young kid was playing my Little League football game for the West Side Cubs, coming home, mom making Campbell's tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, and me and my dad and my mom sitting, I'm laying on the floor eating my sandwich and eating my soup, and we're watching Michigan football. And that went all the way through, you know, when I got to high school, it was different because we played on Friday nights. So yeah, I did the same thing, but, you know, not as a, you know, high school kid. I wasn't laying on the floor in my uniform, but
if somebody tapped you on the shoulder then, Gus Johnson, and said you're going to get to call the big game every year for the whole country to watch, what would you have said to that person?
I would have said, you're from Mars. You're from the Kuiper Belt. You're from Pluto. What are you talking about? I had no idea that. Well, I did have an idea that broadcasting existed because my mother, I don't know, for some reason, I think that she and Brian Gumbel had a thing because every morning from 1979, when Brian Gumbel broadcast Michigan State and Indiana State, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and Brian Gumbel came on television with that beautiful smile and he was articulate and Natalie attired. From that moment on, in 1979, my mother knew what I was going to do.
How fantastic is that?
I thought I was going to replace Lou Whitaker. No, I really did.
For the Tigers?
I was like, Lou's going to retire. I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to play second base for the Tigers.
The Trammell Johnson.
It was going to be Johnson Trammell, right.
That's the double play combination.
Yeah, right. But she knew, and I watched Brian Gumbel from that moment on all the way through high school, remember, because he left sports and went to
the
Today Show, so he's on every morning.
That's why I wound up going to Michigan, believe it or not, that they had a broadcast. Either Bryant or Jane Pauley was at Michigan, and the other one was at Brown.
Wow.
And my mother was watching it, and she's just like, wow, Michigan is like an Ivy League school? Is that what? So she started pushing me towards looking at Michigan. So, of course, I rejected that notion out of hand because my mother is suggesting it. And I wound up going to a symposium for Michigan in Manhattan and meeting some of the students there. And I'm like, these people are pretty cool. And then I went to visit the campus. A foot of snow fell on the ground while I was there.
Right.
And I was over. I went there even with the snow on the ground. I'm like, this is for me. And it's one of the greatest things to ever happen to me for so many different reasons, writing for the student newspaper and then going. So this is the sort of stuff I think about when I'm going to be sitting down and watching the game. And then I sit down and wonder why me as a 53-year-old man with 3 children and a lot going on in my life, as Tom Brady might say, 53 with a lot of ish going on. Why does this mean so damn much to me? Why am I so emotionally invested? Why do I want this so bad? These are questions I think about during those interminably long commercial breaks waiting for you to come back on to call the action.
Because it's your team.
That is.
You know, it's your team. We all have to have something to hold on to make life normal. You know, we go through life, and that's why to me it's so important. People for the last almost 30 years, Rich, have allowed me to come into their homes during their times of relaxation, rest, to spend time with their families. That's important to me. So when I call the game, I don't want to be too controversial. I'm not trying to be 60 Minutes. I just want to delight in the excellence of these young men and women that I have a chance to call, because I know it's so important to them. Because it's important to me. It connects you to great moments in your life and in your mind. You seeing that foot of snow. I mean, I could do the play-by-play for your life. You seeing that foot of snow when you got there, the feeling that you had walking on the campus the first time you really paid attention to a Michigan game, the friends that you met when you went to the game the first time. You know, all those things are things that connect us, and I think things that make us human. And I think it's special.
It is. And you're going to be calling that for both schools. It means so much. That's incredible. I got to tell you, Gus, I'm getting a vibe here that I want to bring up, because I'm sure you have some memories of him too. And I'm thinking of Stuart Scott. And because I watch you and you and I are talking, and I'm just wondering if you got what Stuart got a lot of, which is don't do it that way. Did you get a lot of that in your career, Gus Johnson?
Not really.
That's
Nobody
good.
ever told me that I was doing it wrong. That's one thing I loved about the CBS experience. At CBS Sports, we had different kind of broadcasters. I mean, our leader back then was, and still is, Jim Nance.
Mm-hmm.
He had his own style.
Mm-hmm.
We had Vern Lundquist. We had Dick Enberg there during that time. Don Criqui was there during that time. Not one time did anybody ever tell me that I wasn't doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever said, Gus, don't do it that way. As a matter of fact, back then we had bosses like Tony Petitti. I remember one time I was doing a LaDainian Tomlinson San Diego game. And LaDainian, because I would get negative criticism when the internet started, but not from my bosses. And LaDainian, so I said, I'm going to give him a Chris Schenkel. I'm going to give him, from this point on, I'm going to be Chris Schenkel, and I'm going to be understated. So LaDainian Tomlinson goes screaming down the sideline, this unbelievable play. And I do my best Pat Summerall impersonation. LaDainian Tomlinson, down the sideline, touchdown San Diego. I swear, he didn't cross the finish line before the truck lit up with a call from Roast Beef Central, is what we call it at CBS, where all the bosses sit there and watch the game. You call that Roast Beef Central. Roast Beef Central call, it's Tony Bettini on the phone. Tony Bettini says to my producer, I think it was Jim Rickoff, who's superstar producer there now, or maybe Vic Frank, same kind of guy. He says, Bettini says, what's wrong with Gus? So the producer says, Tony Petitti's on the line. He wants to know what's wrong with you. I said, tell Tony Petitti that I was just trying to do my best. Chris Schenkel, Pat Summerall. He said, tell Gus to stop you know what and be himself, and I don't need to ever have to make this you know what call again. So in a way, it was me testing them, not them testing me.
Fantastic.
Okay, you want that? Okay, I'll give that to you. How you feel about that? And from that moment on, it was clear. Just be you and just have fun, and that's what you're good at. You're not good at being Chris Schenkel.
How much interaction did you have with Stuart? Did you ever cross paths with him?
Stu and I have known each other. His cousin Tony Vaughns and I went to college together at Howard. So I've known Stu. I knew Stu from the beginning. And the last time I talked to Stu, we were at the Super Bowl in New York. Mm-hmm. And I ran into him with his lady in the hotel lobby at about midnight. And it was just us. And I said to him, I said, man, when you go to bed at night, are you afraid? And he said, no, I'm not afraid when I go to bed at night. But I am afraid that I'm going to miss my daughter's wedding.
Oh, my God.
I'm afraid that I'm not going to see my grandchildren.
What a gut punch. What a gut punch. I had his two beautiful daughters here on the show a few months ago, and they're doing great, and he'd be proud of them, and I know he'd be fired up to see your success get even bigger and bigger and bigger every year. He's a special guy, man.
He was just a good man.
The guy you saw in the air is the guy that you see in person.
And that's usually
That's it.
what makes the great ones.
And all he wanted to talk about was family and love and who you love and are you happy and be yourself.
Yeah.
And so
Now, he was so creative that he was a trailblazer.
he was.
He allowed all of us to have a poetic license, so to speak. We could be creative. We could bring what our life experience. We could bring our life experience into journalism, into sports. And that was all because of him, because he was such a trailblazer and a trendsetter. Just a good dude, man.
Sitting next to him in the middle of the night, he never really felt that way. He didn't. He got a sense. He understood. Certainly towards the end of his life,
Right.
he knew. But when the two of us were just doing our thing, 3:30
You
in the
guys
morning,
did it for a long time.
7 years. 7 years.
That's
we
a
did.
long. That's an eternity in what we do, as you know.
Well, he called me his TV wife. That's what he did, And I miss him every day. And I think of him when there's big sporting events and what he would think. And
I think that, and tell me what you think about this, because I like doing this. I like keeping the great broadcasters' voices alive. Like, I'll say cooler than the other side of the pillow in the midst of a broadcast.
I catch it.
Because I want to keep that alive.
You should. We have to.
Yeah.
Because he's gone 6 years, and I think to myself, sometimes there's some people who are going to just not remember him.
And I'll say booyah. I might say booyah this weekend.
I love it.
Do it.
I would love if you did that.
Is that okay? That's not stealing, right?
Only for Michigan touchdowns.
Oh,
Come on, Gus, you walked into that one.
yeah.
Gus Johnson, you are the greatest. Thanks for spending this time. Travel safe. Have a great broadcast. I'll be there biting my nails down to the cuticles.
It's going to be wonderful. Thank you for having me, man. And proud of you. You're
Thank
doing
you.
great.
Appreciate that.
We need you.
I'm here. That's Gus Johnson
My
here
man.
on the Rich Eisen Show here on a busy Wednesday. Still have about a minute or so to go here on Roku.
Gus, I wanted to ask if I could. You talked about Stewart and his catchphrases, which are iconic, and you have some yourself, obviously. Is that something you pre-planned? Do you work on these beforehand, or is this just all coming straight off the top of the dome when you're just in the moment? Because there was one time during the game, you said it was so cold, this was amazing, that a guy could rob you with a bucket of water. And I was like, that is truly incredible. That is an incredible thought. Like, it's so cold that he could rob you just with the thought of him freezing.
You would have just given up all your jewelry. You're taking here's my wallet. I think about these things. I read a lot. I love listening to music, all kinds of music. I'm a big hip hop head since I was, since Curtis Blow. I'll think about it. It'll come to my mind, or I'll see something that I can use that I'll not necessarily always write down,
But you'll keep in the back of
but
your
I'll
head.
just keep it in the back of my head, so it can come out organically during that moment.
Got you.
Plus, you have been robbed by a bucket of water before in your life.
I've been robbed
I have.
before.
No, but a bucket of water. That is amazing. All right, Gus.
All right, man.
Thank you for being here. You are awesome at what you do. Say hi to Joel Klatt and the rest of the
I
crew
will.
there. And you'll see Charles Woodson, I'm sure. And
Yep.
it'll be a great time.
So you're going to be there, right?
Hell no. I've got to work the next day.
you gotta
I'll be there on the couch watching you.
You got okay. Well,
So treat me well.
You got it, man.
I'll
You got
be
it.
good morning tomorrow. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.